Hey everyone, my name is Moonbuster Green, and this is going to be a very long, very weird video. First things first, if you guys don't know me, I usually comment on anime and stuff, but I occasionally review American movies and cartoons and video games and stuff. Right now, I'm trying to get my channel monetized, and if anyone can watch my channel for like 890 something hours, I will get monetized. Anyway, if you like this video, just watch another video of mine. Just try to watch my content for at least an hour a day. It really helps the channel. Alright, so anyway, first things first, this is a light and unserious follow-up video to a video I made 2 years ago detailing the current plans and news from Disney that they were planning to reboot Darkwing Duck. And since those 2 years, time has passed and we've gotten like literally nothing. The only hint that they're still working on this Darkwing reboot was a very light Easter egg teasing that it was in development at the end of the live-action Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie. Aside from that, we've gotten literally nothing in regards to the reboot of Darkwing Duck. Now, Disney is doing some major house cleaning right now after a couple flops at the box office, and I think if we're gonna hear anything, it's probably gonna be soon with the whole management shakeup. If we don't hear anything in probably the next year or two, I'm going to say this project is probably dead, and it probably fell apart as Ducktales itself was canceled shortly after the Darkwing reboot was announced. But despite getting canceled, Ducktales 2017 continues to do better than average numbers on Disney+, and in reruns, it is starting to get regarded as a modern-day classic of animation. Go figure, but yeah, it was pretty good and pretty fun, and I can't think of a show since then that has been so, crazy exciting for all this fucking 90s nostalgia it had. Anyway, with that all aside, I'm gonna do something really weird today. Now, 5 years ago, DuckTales was rebooted, and in this reboot of DuckTales, they basically set up Darkwing Duck. Now, in episode 11 of the DuckTales 2017 reboot, they introduced Darkwing Duck as a concept, and at that time, much to everyone's extreme disappointment, Darkwing Duck was not presented as a lurking Batman-like figure in the DuckTales universe. He was instead an alternate universe Darkwing Duck live-action TV show that was that world's equivalent of the live-action Adam West Batman TV show. It was filmed in the 1990s. It had a lot of the same episodes as our Darkwing show, but it also existed in this DuckTales universe as a live-action show. And the major caveat with that was that as DuckTales 2017 continued, they continued to bring up major Darkwing characters, and they would classify these major Darkwing characters as either real characters existing in the DuckTales universe or fictional characters existing in the TV Darkwing universe. And this gets really complicated because this means that these fictional characters definitely participated in episodes exactly mirroring the 1990s Darkwing Duck cartoon, while the real characters who they established as real people in this DuckTales universe did not. These characters were free agents independent of the canon of the old cartoon, and if they ever referenced the old cartoon, these characters would be cut out of it. And this creates a massive mental headache, because we now have to consider that there is this in DuckTales universe Darkwing Duck live-action TV show, and all we know for sure are a few major facts about it. Now we know major facts like Megavolt was on the show, Quackerjack was on the show, Liquidator was on the show, Bushroot was on the show, and a handful of other major Darkwing Duck villains were on the show. But on the flip side, and here comes the mental gymnastics, we know Steelbeak was not on the show, we know Taurus Bulba was not on the show, we know Negaduck was not on the show. And most importantly, Launchpad and Goslin were not on the show because they've been established as real characters, which really makes things extra bizarre because that basically flips over and upends half of the episodes of Darkwing Duck. So for the rest of this video, just to have some fun, I'm gonna literally go over every episode of the original 1990s Darkwing Duck cartoon show and do the mental gymnastics of figuring out whether or not these episodes would exist in the in-universe TV show of DuckTales 2017. And just to simplify this as easy as possible, I'm just going to do a quick synopsis of the episode and give it a rating of possible if it could have happened, impossible if it couldn't have happened, or something else if it's complicated. So to start with, let's just once again go over the Darkwing Duck show established in the Ducktales TV show and go over the facts that we actually know. Now, the show is established to have aired in relatively the same time frame as the real-world Darkwing Duck TV show, so 1991 to 1993. It starred a washed-up actor named Jim Starling as Darkwing Duck, who did all his own stunts, was heavily injured, and the show's budget was implied to have gotten weaker and weaker as the show continued. Now, first things first, DuckTales 2017 lays down the groundwork and gives us a few episodes that we definitely know exist. There are also a few episodes that DuckTales establishes that we don't know about because they don't have real-world equivalents with the actual Darkwing Duck episodes. So the first time Darkwing appears in episode 11, Beware the Buddy System, they give us this super generic introductory episode of Darkwing Duck. This episode also displays a random team-up between Megavolt Liquidator and Quackerjack, which is something that never happened in a major episode of the real Darkwing, because it was either all of them plus Bushroot, but not the three of them as shown in this episode. This episode also sets up Gizmo Duck, setting up Gizmo Duck as another real-world character divorced from the in-universe Darkwing TV show. The next major look at Darkwing, the show, comes in Season 2, Episode 14, Friendship Hates Magic. Now, this is mostly a weapy episode, but there is a minor B-plot where Launchpad and Mrs. Beakley try to become friends, and so to become friends, they bond over Darkwing Duck. Now, this episode is probably one of the most important episodes for figuring out the logic of the alternate universe Darkwing Duck TV show, and quite frankly, this episode is honestly kind of what got me thinking about doing this video, because in this episode, they watched the episode The Haunting of Mr. Banana Brain, which is canonically episode 56 of the original Darkwing Duck. Now, the episode seems to play out almost exactly as it did in our universe, but there's a critical problem with this episode in that one of the main catalysts of this episode was Goslin freeing Paddywhack and setting up the events of the episode. Now, when Launchpad and Mrs. Beakley watch it in DuckTales, it seems that the episode still plays out almost exactly the same, except for the fact that Paddywhack was released without Goslin releasing him. So from this, you can kind of start to do the mental gymnastics of the in-universe Darkwing Duck TV show happened, but Goslin and Launchpad were not in it, so therefore a lot of the same events happened, just without Goslin or Launchpad causing them. Now, after that, 2 episodes later, we get to Season 2, Episode 16, the greatest episode of the entire DuckTales series, The Duck Knight Returns, where we see the last episode of the fictional Darkwing Duck TV show, where the fictional Darkwing Duck TV show ends on a cliffhanger, where St. Canard is thrown into chaos over a mad bomber, and Darkwing Duck corners the mad bomber villain, a villain I think his name Bon Voyage, unmasks him and discovers that he is another evil Darkwing Duck, which ends up being fucking savage foreshadowing for the fact that this episode introduces DuckTales World Megaduck. And it fucking stands as one of the most chilling moments in the entire series, and one of the greatest unfollowed up cliffhangers in the entirety of TV history. God damn you, series. You had one job and you fumbled it. By the way, the one thing I love about this episode is it's the last time you see Launchpad team up with the original Darkwing, and it also acts as a meta kind of film industry thing for ironically mirroring the reaction Adam West had to the short publicized outburst he had when he found out that Tim Burton was not going to hire him to play Batman in Batman 1989. Now we get one more morsel to chew on in this episode. When Drake, Mallard, and Launchpad are bonding, they mention a non-existent episode as kind of a throwaway joke line that Darkwing fought a female fire fashion-based villain named Hot Couture. Now this is probably just a stupid joke for the sake of saying the phrase Hot Couture, but if you want to get more into it, maybe it's a setup for a new villain coming in the reboot. Either way, there is no episode where Darkwing fights Hot Couture. That episode doesn't exist, so this is kind of a weird head scratcher right here. Now after that, Darkwing gets a few more cameos throughout DuckTales, but the final time the old Darkwing TV show is mentioned at all is in the final full Darkwing reboot pilot episode Season 3 Let's Get Dangerous, a homage/remake to the original Darkwing Duck pilot movie, which thankfully you can still watch in its entirety on YouTube, and it's still there to watch for free several years later. It now has 3 million hits on it, and hopefully those 3 million people are waiting for Darkwing to come back. I guess Disney is keeping it up to keep measuring how popular and relevant Darkwing Duck is. Anyway, this is a great episode because it confirms like a handful of Darkwing Duck episodes. Now, the episodes that we get confirmed here are the Jambalaya Jake episode, the Bugmaster episode. Jambalaya Jake comes from episode 16, Can't Buy You Love. This episode actually did have Goslin in it, and it had a pretty minor role for Launchpad, so that episode would translate to the alternate universe pretty easily. Then the Bugmaster episode is episode 87, Fraudcast News, in which a crooked reporter commits crimes as the villain Bugmaster to prop up her ratings. Now, Goslin played a major subplot in this one. I think she briefly helped out the Bugmaster, but either way, it's a simple episode and a simple concept, so you can imagine that this works without Launchpad and Goslin in the plot. Also, Bushroot finally makes his appearance in this episode, and they mention episode 3, Beauty and the Beat, as his introduction episode. This episode also did not contain Goslin, so this is another episode that basically works perfectly as is in the universe. Also, Darkwing and Launchpad lastly reference the two-parter episode Justice Ducks, which is a logical contradiction since this episode heavily features both Negaduck and Gizmoduck, but I guess this episode would still work if you just considered that it happened without those two characters being in it. Now, what's more complicated is those episodes are still confirmed to be episode 3 and episode 21 of the Darkwing Duck TV show in both our universe and the Ducktales universe, which does create a little bit of a head scratcher later on. Now, with those episodes out of the way, let me go down to the pure chaos of this video. For the rest of this video, I'm going to go over all 91 episodes of Darkwing Duck and whether or not they could speculatively exist in the 2017 DuckTales universe. This is going to be incredible amounts of mental gymnastics. This is going to be hell for me, and this is going to be mostly me examining synopsises of the episodes and figuring out whether or not they could work in the bizarre roles of DuckTales 2017. I will try to do this as quickly as possible, just naming the episode, the synopsis, and whether or not it's possible. So, here goes nothing. Episode 1 and 2, Darkly Dawns the Duck. This cannot exist in the DuckTales universe because they hinge on establishing the relationship with Darkwing, Goslin, Launchpad, and Taurus Bulba. Now, logically, I just say remove them from this reality and start with Beauty and the Beat, but Launchpad and Darkwing confirm that that is still episode 3. So that means you have to consider that there was an alternate Darkwing Duck origin story in the space of these first 2 episodes that had a completely different story. Potentially it had the same title, but it had to be a completely different story. Moving on, episode 3, Beauty and the Beat, fully confirmed Bushroot exists. Episode 4, Getting Antsy. This is the one where Lily Put the Ant-Man, a one-off villain, shrinks down famous landmarks to make them into a golf course. Goslin and Launchpad had no major effect on this plot, so this one works. Episode 5, Night of the Living Spud. Bushroot makes a wife out of potato. This one works. Episode 6, Apes of Wrath. Shush sends Darkwing and his family to Africa to look for a missing scientist. Then Darkwing gets into a parody of the plot of Apocalypse Now. This episode mostly works. By the way, DuckTales 2017 established that Shush and Agent Grizzlycoff were elements of the Darkwing Duck TV show, but also unclearly confirms that Shush was also real, as was probably J. Edgar Hoover. Episode 17, another Hush episode. Darkwing Duck and Grizzlycoff fight Ammonia Pine. I don't think Goslin or Launchpad were even in this one, so this one works perfectly. Episode 8, Duck Blind, the first major Megavolt story. Also, because of the weird rollout episode of Darkwing Duck episodes, even though this is the first Megavolt story, it doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's a rematch. Anyway, despite it being the first one, Megavolt nearly kills Darkwing in this one and leaves him blind for a majority of the episode. Darkwing has to learn how to be blind, and Goslin and Launchpad try to defeat Megavolt for Darkwing at the end of the episode, but get captured. Now, this one sort of works, but because Goslin and Launchpad steer the ending, they would have to completely change the ending to the episode. This episode makes me really wonder if reality without Launchpad and Goslin would have led to Darkwing's other supporting casts having larger roles, like maybe more episodes with Grizzly Cough or Stagmud or Morgana. Anyway, episode 9, Comic Book Capers. This episode heavily breaks the fourth wall and concerns several of the characters trying to write a Darkwing Duck comic book. I'm going to say this one's impossible because since the Darkwing Duck TV show in Ducktales was supposed to be a live-action TV show, this one wouldn't make sense. Episode 10, What a Way to Go. Steelbeak uses a weather machine to devastate the wealthy Arabian nation of Oil Arabia. Impossible. No Steelbeak, and also I'm just going to say it now, this episode was fucking racist. Episode 11, Paradox. Goslin goes back in time to meet young Drake Mallard. Impossible. No Goslin, no Drake Mallard. Episode 12, Easy Come, Easy Grow. Bushroot makes a money tree. Drake takes it home. It corrupts everyone, and it makes counterfeit money. This one is highly unlikely and would have to be completely rewritten to work in the DuckTales universe. But actually, now that you mention it, there was an episode of DuckTales 2017 with a money tree. Weird coincidence. Episode 13, Revolution in Home Appliances. Megavolt gets power over household appliances, brings them to life, and assembles a gang of appliances to take over the city. Possible. This one works really well. Episode 14, Trading Faces. Darkwing Launchpad trade places with Goslin and Honker. Impossible. Next, episode 15, Hush Hush Sweet Charlatan. Tusker Nini makes a film, but commits several accidents on the film set for insurance fraud purposes. Possible. This episode is pretty grounded. Episode 16, Can't Buy You Love. Already confirmed. Next, episode 17, Bearskin Thug. Drake goes camping and runs into Steelbeak. Impossible. Too much Drake, too much Steelbeak. Episode 18, Sweat Your Life. Darkwing investigates an evil health spa where the owner is trying to develop a fountain of youth. Goslin isn't in this one, but the Muddlefoots play strongly into the plots. I have to consider the Muddlefoots maybe were in the Darkwing Duck TV show, but maybe they weren't because they were Drake Mallard's real-life neighbors. This one's hard, so I'm just going to give this one a maybe. Episode 19, Days of Blunder. Crackerjack poses as Darkwing Duck's psychiatrist and convinces him to retire so he can stage a crime spree. Possible, this one actually works really well. Episode 20 plus 21, Justice Ducks. So this one was confirmed from DuckTales, but you have to figure that these episodes play out very similar to the originals, but with the omission of Gizmo Duck and Negaduck, putting both the good guy team and the bad guy team down a man. Otherwise, it works. Episode 22, Double Darkwings. This is the second Jambalaya Jake episode and a heavy Launchpad episode. Goslin actually isn't in this episode, but because the plot relies too heavily on Launchpad's actions, I'm going to say this one is impossible. Episode 26, A Ducky Phobia. Darkwing gets bit by a radioactive spider and renames himself Arachno Duck after growing extra arms. Possible, this one works. Episode 25, When Aliens Collide. Goslin finds an alien who is actually a space criminal. Impossible, heavy Goslin involvement. Episode 25, Jurassic Jumble. Darkwing fights Dr. Fossil, a duck turned into a dinosaur who makes a de-evolution gun to turn everyone into dinosaurs. Possible. Episode 26, Cleanliness into Baldiness. Steelbeak and Ammonia Pine team up. Impossible, no Steelbeak. Episode 27, the alien Superman comic guy arrives on Earth to help Darkwing beat Steelbeak. Goslin isn't in this episode, but this one disqualifies itself with too much Steelbeak. Also, comic guy was so fucking weird. Impossible. Episode 28, All's Fahrenheit in Love and War. No Goslin again. Darkwing and Launchpad go up against the obese female ice villain Isis Vanderchill, who makes the city uncomfortably cold for Darkwing Duck. Possible. Episode 29, Whiffle While You Work. I think this is Crackerjack's first appearance / origin episode. Crackerjack goes insane here because he loses his toy company to a video game company and then decides to kill the video game company. Later, he and Darkwing get stuck inside a video game. Possible. Episode 30, Ghoul My Dreams. Morgana puts a city to sleep by mistake. Darkwing stops her. Possible. Episode 31, Adopt a Con. Drake Mallard lets Tusker Nini live with him to see if he's a reformed man. Impossible. It's a Drake Mallard episode. Episode 32, Toys R Us. Crackerjack tries to create a toy utopia for kids, while at the same time Darkwing decides to become a helicopter parent to Goslin. This one is probably impossible because it's a major Goslin episode, and it would have to be heavily rewritten to work without Goslin. Episode 33, The Secret Origin of Darkwing Duck. This episode is completely illogical and kind of one of the worst episodes of the series because it disrespects the greater canon of the series and make a bunch of jokes about Superman. Totally impossible. Episode 34, Up, Up, and Awry. Gizmo Duck fights Megavolt, and Darkwing gets jealous because Gizmo Duck's fighting his villain. Impossible, plot relies heavily on Gizmo Duck. Episode 34, Life, the Negaverse, and Everything. Darkwing Duck travels to an alternate universe, the Negaverse. Negaduck's home dimension and has to team up with good versions of the Fearsome Four to defeat Negaduck. Great episode, but impossible in the Ducktales universe. Episode 36, Dry Hard, Liquidator's origin episode. Confirmed by default because Liquidator shows up in Ducktales. And once again, for the record, I was so disappointed that pre-transformation Liquidator did not show up in Ducktales as a villain. I wanted that so bad, that would have been so cool. Anyway, possible. Episode 37, Heavy Mental. Launchpad gains psychic powers. Impossible, too much Launchpad. Episode 38, The Sky is the Limit. Negaduck poses as Darkwing Duck and ruins his reputation. Impossible, too much Negaduck. Episode 39, Planet of Capes. Comet Guy returns and abducts Darkwing to his planet of human being superheroes. I guess this one's possible because it doesn't actually feature Launchpad or Goslin, but this was another weird episode. I just don't like Comet Guy. He freaks me out. Episode 40, Darkwing Doubloons. A weird bottle episode set in the 1800s where all the characters are suddenly pirates for no logical reason. Technically, this is a Fearsome 5 episode. I'm going to say this one is possible if you omit Negaduck, but this episode was also bizarre because all the characters are just suddenly pirates in the 1800s. Episode 41, It's a Wonderful Leap. Bushroot attacks the city with an army of sentient Christmas trees and ruins Christmas. Possible. Episode 42, Twitching Channels. Megavolt creates a device called the Electrolyzer designed to allow him to travel through electricity, and then uses it to destroy television. Something goes wrong, however, when Megavolt and Darkwing are drawn into another dimension where human beings are the dominant species on Earth, and Darkwing Duck is a TV show. I guess this episode is possible, but wow, I completely forgot about this one. This one was super weird. Episode 43, Dances with Bigfoot. Darkwing is captured by Bigfoot. Goslin has to rescue him. Impossible, Goslin saves the day. Episode 44, Twin Peaks. Massively confusing parody of David Lynch's adult series Twin Peaks that kids did not watch and was very, very hard to figure out in the 90s. Anyway, Bushroot dies in this one, alien cabbages attack the Earth, and I think later Bushroot respawns because Twin Peaks made no fucking sense. Anyway, this episode is pretty much confirmed because Bushroot in Ducktales has the dead look from this episode, which is an inside joke because Bushroot's actor has died. Creepy. But possible. Episode 45, Incredible Bulk. Bushroot develops a new fertilizer to make larger plants. Possible. Episode 46, My Valentine Ghoul. Negaduck and Darkwing Duck fight over Morgana. Impossible. Too much Negaduck. Episode 47, The Dead Duck. Megavolt finally kills Darkwing. I don't remember this one. Was this one of those episodes they banned because Satan's in it? Possible, maybe? I don't know. I don't remember this one. Episode 48, A Duck by Any Other Name. Launchpad is identified by the news as the secret identity of Darkwing Duck, and then Tuscanini tries to assassinate Launchpad. Impossible, this is a Launchpad episode. Episode 49, Let's Get Respectable. Darkwing Duck becomes aware of how bad his reputation is, so he and Goslin try to fix it. At the same time, Negaduck also tries to make it worse. Impossible, heavy Negaduck and Goslin plot. Episode 50, In Like Blunt. This episode is impossible because it is a crossover with the original 80s DuckTales, where Magica, Dispel, the Beagle Boys, and Glomgold appear. Episode 51, Crack of the Ages. Crackerjack, Darkwing Duck, and Launchpad travel back to medieval times and get involved in some king and queen drama. Possible. Episode 52, Time and Punishment. Goslin gets sent to the future by a villain plot, and this creates a time paradox where Darkwing thinks she is dead, and then hardcores up and becomes a fascist dictator reacting to her death. Impossible, this is a heavy Goslin episode. Episode 53, Stressed to Kill. Darkwing is overly stressed, So he ends up getting hypnotized by Megavolt and Crackerjack, who remove his ability to feel anger. He then falls into a state of depression and fails to stop Megavolt and Crackerjack from burning down the city. Oh, lol, this is like that meme. Anyway, this is possible, I guess, but the ending does hinge on Goslin and Launchpad getting Darkwing out of his depression, so this one gets a maybe. Episode 54, Darkwing Squad. This is a Steelbeak episode, it's impossible. Episode 55, Inside Binky's Brain. Binky gets hit by a bowling ball and becomes a costume vigilante and tries to take down Megavolt. Goslin and Launchpad aren't in this one, so I guess it's possible if you consider the Muddlefoots as possible in the Ducktales universe. Episode 56, Haunting of Mr. Banana Brain, confirmed by Ducktales. Episode 56, Slime okay, you're okay. Bushroot accidentally turns Goslin into slime and this slowly kills her. Oh my god, this episode was traumatic. This episode gave me nightmares as a kid. Impossible, and this episode was just so fucking sad. Episode 58, World History. Goslin has a dream. Impossible. Goslin episode. Episode 59, UFO. Aliens abduct Launchpad and make him their king. Impossible. This is a Launchpad episode. Also, wasn't there an episode of DuckTales with like literally this exact same plot? Episode 60, A Star is Scorned. In an alternate human being universe established in the previous episode, Disney TV producers plot to redevelop Darkwing Duck as a TV show starring Bushroot. This episode is completely meta and completely bizarre. It is technically possible, but honestly this episode is so weird that it's just completely bizarrely meta even by modern standards. Episode 61, Quiverwing Quack. Goslin decides to become a superhero and fights Negaduck. Impossible. Episode 62, Jailbird. Negaduck steals the power of the Fearsome Four to become Mega Negaduck and terrorizes the city. Impossible Negaduck episode. Episode 63, The Dirty Something. Ammonia Pine and Ample Grime attack the city together in a team-up. Meanwhile, Darkwing has a personal crisis because Goslin has pawned away a large amount of his property, leaving him broke and without possessions. Possible aside for the Goslin subplot. Episode 64, Kung Fu. Darkwing and Moriarty take karate lessons from Goose Lee. Possible. Episode 65, Bad Luck Duck. Negaduck steals a treasure from a native tribe, and then Darkwing Duck ends up getting cursed by the tribe because they think it was him. Impossible, this is a Negaduck story. And, that's only season 1. Oh my god, this is drying me out. I should have got a drink before I started doing this. So let's go to season 2. Episode 65, The Sinking Feeling. Moriarty locks the moon into an eclipse and tries to destroy St. Canard. Possible. 67, Flim Flam. Tuxture Nini creates a gun that brings fictional characters to life and then makes a gang of fictional criminals to commit a crime spree. Possible. Episode 68, The Negaduck. Darkwing is split into good and bad Darkwing by Megavolt's Tron Splitter, and this is the origin of Negatron Negaduck, the original Negaduck. I'm going to give this episode a pass and regard it as possible because Negatron Negaduck is a completely different character from Yellow Alternate Universe Negaduck. Episode 69, Fungus Among Us. Darkwing Duck falls in love with Morgana. Possible. Episode 70, Slaves to Fashion. Binky tries to feminize Goslin into a girl, while at the same time Tuskernini makes a spray that brainwashes people based on the clothes they're wearing and causes full psychosis when used on anyone wearing a Halloween costume. Half possible, but you need to remove the Goslin subplot. Episode 71, Something Fishy. Neptunia, the Queen of Atlantis, plans to flood the city of St. Canard for polluting the ocean. Confirmed because of Justice Ducks. Episode 72, Tiff of the Titans. Gizmo Duck fights Steelbeak. Impossible. Episode 73, Calm a Chameleon. Camille Chameleon tries to hijack the Howl publishing empire so she can print counterfeit money. B-plot about Honker, but I'm going to rate this one as possible. Episode 74, Battle of the Brain Teasers. The Brain Teaser, a race of parasitic aliens shaped like hats, come to Earth to steal Earth's nuclear weapons. Possible. Episode 75, Bad Tidings. Darkwing and Grizzlycoff stop a foul conspiracy. Launchpad and Goslin aren't in this episode at all because this is a Grizzly Cough episode. Possible, but goddamn, the Grizzly Cough episodes were so, like, lackluster. Episode 76, Going Nowhere Fast. Negaduck accidentally gives Darkwing Duck super speed, but using it makes him age at an accelerated rate. Darkwing becomes old and Negaduck conquers the city. Impossible, too much Negaduck. Episode 77, Brush with Oblivion. Splatter Phoenix uses her powers to go inside paintings and attack a museum. The kids see her, but no one believes them. Later, she traps the kids inside a painting. Oh, also, this episode scared the shit out of me as a kid. I did not want to get trapped inside a painting. That was like my biggest fear for like years. Also, Splatter Phoenix, underrated goth girl Darkwing Duck villain. I really hope she's in the reboot. I'm going to give this one a rating of possible, I guess. Episode 78, Merchant of Menace. Plastic containers are coming to life. Ugh. Shush sends Darkwing to stop them. Okay, that's really stupid, but possible. Okay, we finally reached Season 3. Wow, it only took us half an hour. Okay, Season 3, Episode 79, Monsters Are Us. Morgana introduces Darkwing to her monster family, who are upset she is not dating a monster. Possible. Episode 80, Inherit the Wimp. Goslin uses Crackerjack's time machine to bring several of Darkwing Duck's ancestors to the present day, and he discovers that they are all losers. Impossible, it's a Goslin episode. Episode 81, Revenge of the Return of the Brain Teasers. The evil hat aliens come back for revenge against Honker. I guess it's possible if you exclude Honker, depending on whether or not you think Honker existed. Episode 82, Star-Crossed Circuits. Darkwing replaces Launchpad with a computer, but later it falls in love with him. Impossible because the computer existed in Ducktales. Episode 83, Steerminators. Steelbeak brings Taurus Bulba back to life as a cyborg. Impossible, Steelbeak and Taurus Bulba. Episode 84, Frequency Fiends. Megavolt uses his positron splitter again, but this time he uses it on Goslin and makes 3 clones of Goslin. Later, the 3 clones combine into a monster. Impossible, it's a Goslin episode. Episode 85, Paint Misbehaving. Darkwing Duck is invited to a comic book convention, but Splatter Phoenix attacks the comic book convention because she's a critic of high art. Possible. Episode 86, Hot Spells. Goslin tries to learn magic, but somehow ends up getting involved with the devil. Oh, fun fact, this episode is banned to this day in America. It's even still banned in Disney+. However, it's only banned in the United States, so you can get a high-quality episode of it if you get it from another country. Episode 87, Fraudcast News. Bugmaster episode, confirmed. Episode 88, Clash Reunion. Goslin figures out that Megavolt and Drake Mallard went to high school together. Impossible. Episode 89, Mutiny on the Bouncy. Goslin writes a school newspaper article about Darkwing Duck fighting Cementhead. Impossible Goslin episode. Episode 90, Morgana opens a restaurant and the cute little bunnies come there, but then Negaduck tries to kill them. Impossible, it's a Negaduck episode. And the last episode of Darkwing Duck is episode 91, Extinct Possibility, a parody of Jurassic Park, where Darkwing Duck finds his body encased in amber and has to investigate how this is possible, so he steals Crackerjack's time machine to create a self-sustaining time travel loop and seal himself in a block of amber. That's ridiculous, but I guess it's possible. Ugh. Oh my god, I'm so out of breath after all that. Okay, I'm not done yet. Now that we've gone over every single episode, we can actually compile this information and possibly draw some conclusions. So, putting it all into a flowchart, I was able to figure out that we know for a fact that DuckTales confirmed at least 13 episodes of Darkwing Duck. 10 of those episodes were real episodes that we have seen. 3 of them were those additional episodes I mentioned that have no real-world equivalents. And then if we factor in all the episodes that we know are possible, then that brings the possible number of Darkwing Duck episodes up to 51. If we also include the episodes that were maybe possible, we get up to 57. And that leaves, about half the episodes work, half of them don't. Yeah, so that means there's about 40 episodes that are impossible and would not exist with the rules that DuckTales 2017 put in place. So, yeah, this was a complete waste of a day, but hey, I felt like doing it. Anyway, so yeah, I guess in conclusion, I'm still just biding my time waiting for them to reboot Darkwing Duck again. I really, really hope this reboot works out. Alright guys, that was the day. Thanks for hanging out with me. Please watch more of my stuff. I need time to get monetized. Thank you. Good night.